Welcome to Treadmill Talks with Shannon Maves, a podcast for athletes and fitness enthusiasts to pass the time during mind-numbing cardio while I use my no-bullshit coaching style to educate, inspire, and entertain. I'm your host, Shannon Maves. Now let's walk and talk. Hello, and welcome to episode 60 of Treadmill Talks, the third one where I answer your questions. Since episode 20 and episode 40 were both Q&A episodes, I decided I would keep it going every 20th episode because why the fuck not? It seems like a lot of y'all like these types of episodes, and I like answering your questions. So win-win. Now, the last two Q&A episodes that I recorded did end up being a bit on the longer side, though, and my intention with Treadmill Talks is to keep the episodes a duration that works for most people to listen to a full episode during one session of cardio, rather than having to split the episodes up or do longer cardio than necessary. So this time, I decided to limit myself to answering just my 5 favorite questions that I received in hopes of keeping this episode a little bit more bite-sized. We'll see how that goes, though, because if you've listened to any of my previous episodes, you've probably noticed that I do tend to go off on some tangents from time to time, and I usually have to kind of reel myself back in. So let's stop dicking around and just get into it, shall we? The first question that I received is one that I get all the time. Is it better to do cardio on an empty stomach or after you've eaten? Now, I did actually address this question of whether or not fasted or fed cardio is superior in one of my very first episodes, the one about cardio. But because I do get this question so frequently, I wanted to answer it again. And I'm going to answer it with the assumption that this person is inquiring about cardio for fat loss and not like endurance or training for a marathon or something else. So the argument for fasted cardio being superior to fed cardio is that your body burns more fat stores since it is in a fasted state. And while it is true that your body might break down more fat stores while it is in a fasted state, that is just the first step towards fat loss. The broken down fat stores still need to be oxidized. And the only way for this to happen is to be in a caloric deficit, meaning that we are expending more calories than we are consuming. If we are not in a caloric deficit, meaning the calories we are expending are the same or less than the calories we are consuming, these broken down fat stores will remain in the body, whether our cardio was done fasted or fed. Now, the argument against fasted cardio is that it will cause the body to become more catabolic, meaning it will deteriorate lean mass since the body is essentially running on empty. But just like how losing fat isn't that simple or that quick of a process, losing lean mass doesn't happen that simply or that quickly either, as long as you are consuming sufficient protein. To put it simply, scientifically speaking, whether you do your cardio fasted or fed doesn't matter, as long as you are eating in a caloric deficit and consuming sufficient protein. If doing your cardio first thing in the morning before you eat or drink anything is more enjoyable for you, then do that. If doing your cardio with food in your system is more enjoyable for you, then do that. From my personal experience as a coach and an athlete myself, though, I will say that doing your cardio when your body is in a fed state typically gives you more energy to push harder, therefore expending more calories than you would have if you were in a fasted state, therefore putting you in a greater caloric deficit. But still, do whatever works best for you and do what you can adhere to most consistently, which is kind of a great segue into question number 2, because it's kind of the same answer in a way. Question number 2 is, what is the most ideal training split? Now, if I could answer this question in one statement, in one podcast episode, I wouldn't have a job. Okay, but real talk though. The reason I said the answer is similar to my last answer is because it depends mainly on what you enjoy and can adhere to. Having said that, though, there are some things that we can go over to try to help you find your ideal training split, which very well may be completely different than your best friend's ideal training split, which is why I said it depends. Some of the variables that we want to consider when coming up with a training split are things like what your goals are, first of all, what your experience level training is, how many days per week is realistic with your current schedule, how intense your workouts are, and how quickly you recover. To be honest, as a coach, there's a lot more that I take into consideration when writing plans for my clients. But to try to keep this somewhat simple, I'm going to stick to those 5 things. So, number 1, what your goals are. If you're trying to build up a certain body part, you're going to want to train it with more volume than other areas. If you're trying to bring down a certain body part, as far as muscle mass goes, at least, you're going to want to train that muscle less than some of the others. Let's be clear, though, that that doesn't apply to wanting to lose fat in a certain area. Spot reducing fat is unfortunately not possible. Sorry, but it's the truth. But now, if you're wanting to improve all over your physique, then you're going to want to train each muscle relatively evenly. For example, most, not all, but most bikini competitors at the regional level typically get feedback that they need to bring up their glutes and or their delts. So a lot of bikini competitors train glutes and delts like 3 times per week, sometimes more. And typically, bikini competitors don't train things like chest or quads as often, since the division doesn't actually call for those muscle groups. Although they do still play a role in developing a good shape, so bikini competitors, please don't completely neglect those muscles. Now, a wellness competitor is going to train their entire lower body a lot, like a lot. Glutes, hamstrings, quads, all of it, usually 3 times per week, if not more. And they won't train upper body as heavily since that division doesn't call for balance between upper and lower body. Now, the second thing we want to consider when developing a training split is experience level. Because if you are brand new to weightlifting, you will not want to train legs 3 times per week. It will fucking destroy you. You need to build up to it with progressive overload. It's like you can't go from running when you haven't learned how to walk yet, okay? You'll kill yourself if you try to go that hard that quickly. And you're going to want a split that's going to focus more on fundamentals, like understanding movement patterns, training for balance and stability, etc. And then once you get to be a more seasoned lifter, then you can tailor your split to be more specific to you. For example, if I start training someone who is brand new to lifting but has a long-term goal of becoming an IFBB bikini pro, then I would start them with a plan that is going to build muscle everywhere. It might be something like a push, pull, legs, upper, lower, where we focus on compound movements. And then once they get further along in their career, then we can start to address strengths and weaknesses and adjust training to be more specific and isolate certain body parts more. Third, we want to consider how many days per week you can realistically train given your schedule. Because if I assign someone a 5-day training split and they're only completing 3 days per week, then that's not an ideal split for them. So instead of doing a push pull legs upper lower split, I might have them just stick to a push pull legs and assign a bit more volume to each of those workouts. But if you're someone who can train 5 days per week, then you don't want to have too much volume in a single session because your recovery will suffer. Which leads me to numbers 4 and 5, how intense your workouts are and how quickly you recover. The more intense your workouts are, the longer it's going to take to recover. And the more volume your workouts contain, the longer it's going to take to recover. And going back to your experience level, that's also going to determine how long it takes you to recover. And training a different body part while another one is recovering isn't really a rest day, guys, because your body is now going to have to expend even more energy in order to recover both muscle groups, which is why I require every single one of my clients to take at least one full rest day off from training and cardio every single week, no matter what. All that being said, though, some good training splits that I like that aren't super like individually specific would be something like a push pull legs if you're doing 3 times per week. If you're doing 4 times per week, you could do upper lower, upper lower. Or if you're doing 5 times per week, maybe push pull legs, upper lower. But I do tailor programs to my clients a lot more individually. And sometimes I do specific body part splits, or I'll assign a total body day or a conditioning day, et cetera, et cetera. But okay, let's move on to question number 3 now. This person asked, tips for hitting my protein goal on days that I am traveling. Okay, so anyone who has worked with me or has been following me for a while on social media or listening to this podcast or whatever knows that I always preach that supplements should be supplemental. And I stand by this. But long travel days are one of the times that I do think it is 1000% okay to supplement with things like protein powders, protein bars, protein shakes, etc. Those types of things are great non-perishable alternatives that can help you hit your protein goal on a long travel day. But I do also have some other suggestions. Things like beef or turkey jerky are easy to travel with. Canned or packs of tuna, although I highly recommend that you don't eat that while you are on a plane or in any other confined space, just out of respect for everybody else. A random personal favorite of mine is dry roasted edamame, but that one is high in fiber. So again, maybe be mindful of how much you eat it out of respect for anyone traveling alongside you. But bringing some type of non-perishable protein source is a great way to plan ahead and ensure you hit your goals. Now, depending on how or where you're traveling to, I have found that most places are pretty fucking good about having some solid options nowadays. You just may have to look a little bit harder or think outside the box. For instance, if you're at an airport with restaurants, don't be afraid to ask for substitutions or add things. Like you could order a salad and ask for the dressing on the side and ask them to add a grilled chicken breast. If you want to get something more grab and go, look for a Greek yogurt or something. And if you're on a road trip, a lot of gas stations have some solid options now. I've seen prepackaged hard-boiled eggs at Circle K's. And I already mentioned things like beef jerky. And if you're on the East Coast, I've seen Wawa selling prepackaged chicken rice and broccoli before, and they have microwaves for you to heat it up even. So it's really just a matter of planning ahead and being intentional and mindful about your goals. Question number 4 is one that I get a lot as well. And it's one that I've really struggled to answer in the past just because I don't have a super simple answer for it. But I'm going to try. This person said, 15-minute workout suggestions. Okay. So here's why this question has always been hard for me to answer. Because the first thing that I, as a coach, think of is why the fuck do you claim to only have 15 minutes for a workout? We make time for what is important to us. And if you're serious about improving your health, fitness, physique, or whatever, then you need to make the time for it. If you claim to not have the time, then that is a time management issue on your end. Okay, but I am also a reasonable enough person to understand that we all have different circumstances, different schedules, different priorities. So I do want to try to answer this question as best as I can. If your goal is just general health, then pretty much any type of movement is going to be beneficial because movement is medicine. Something as simple as going for a 15-minute walk can be fantastic for overall health and well-being. If you're looking to build lean mass or build strength or improve your body composition, then I would probably recommend choosing just one or maybe two exercises to go all out for those 15 minutes. Something like 5 sets of heavy squats or 3 sets of squats and 3 sets of push-ups or pull-ups or something. You could also do a quick little like circuit where you hit multiple muscle groups just once or twice, but that would be more just to help with general health and maybe maintain lean mass. It's not really going to be super beneficial for actually building any muscle. But if your goal is overall weight loss, then doing something a bit higher intensity, like running or even jump roping, is going to expend a lot more calories than walking or lifting will. So this will be more conducive to putting you into a greater caloric deficit while not taking up too much of your time. But you do want to make sure that your diet is on point and you are getting sufficient protein if you choose to prioritize cardio over resistance training, which is kind of another reason why I just don't love this question. Because I feel like a lot, not all, I'm not going to generalize that harshly, but a lot of people who ask for something like a quick 15-minute workout are the same ones who want a quick fix, and they aren't prioritizing their nutrition either. Which is why I say we make time for what is important to us. And if training isn't the most important thing to you right now, that's okay. Honestly, your priorities are allowed to change, and movement is medicine. So generally speaking, something is better than nothing. But be realistic about your expectations, because if it were easy, everyone would do it in a fucking 15-minute workout. Now, this last question is one that I wanted to answer because it was interesting to me, because I had never actually even heard of this until this person asked me. What is the difference between creatine gummies versus creatine powders? When I read this, I was literally like, huh? What? They have creatine gummies now? Like, okay, guys, can we just take a second to recognize how insane our world is these days? Growing up, I had to take my little chewable Flintstones multivitamins that did not taste good, but we kind of just pretended and told ourselves that they did just because they didn't taste as bad as some of the other ones. And those freaking chalky ass little things were like a groundbreaking new development in the supplement industry. Nowadays, they have flavored powders and capsules and liquids and freaking good tasting gummies for like everything. So anyway, okay, there's one of my tangents. I did some quick research on creatine gummies, and it's basically what I expected. As far as any actual benefits or drawbacks as to the results you will get from either one, there doesn't seem to be any evidence supporting one being superior to the other. However, there are some things to consider with the differences between the two, like the fact that creatine gummies are going to have additional ingredients like gelatin, sugars, or artificial sweeteners, which will increase their calorie content. Or if they're using artificial sweeteners, it can impact digestion for some people. And since creatine can already cause some digestive issues due to the redistribution of water in the body when it is first introduced, I don't know how much I would really recommend adding in more shit that could cause bloating and gas and etc. And if you're looking to cut calories, then powders are probably going to be a better choice for you than gummies. But if you're looking to eat more and increase your calories, then maybe gummies are a good choice for you. Just be sure that if you are taking creatine, you are taking it daily. It doesn't matter if it's pre-workout, post-workout, or even intra-workout. Hell, it could be for your breakfast or your late night snack. It literally doesn't matter because it's not quick digesting. It just matters that you take it consistently so that your muscles can remain fully saturated. I would also highly recommend sticking to creatine monohydrate as opposed to HCl, just for the sake of not throwing money away. Supplement companies are trying to promote HCl as being superior to monohydrate just so they can charge more. But monohydrate has been tested time and time again, and it has always been proven to be highly beneficial for improving lean mass. And now they're even finding that it has benefits for brain function. So there's really no solid evidence supporting any reason to spend more money on a product that is basically equivalent to monohydrate. I'm gonna cut myself off there though, because I could talk for a while about creatine. I've actually got it on my list of ideas for an entire episode because so many people still do not understand what creatine actually is or how it works. I don't actually know when I'll get around to recording that episode though, because I've got a pretty big list of ideas and I've already got some good episodes in the works coming up. But if you specifically like really want to hear an episode about creatine, let me know and I can bump it up as a higher priority on my list. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to DM me as well. Hopefully I answered a lot of them today. And if you liked this episode, please give it a rating or review or share it to your social media. And be sure to tag me. And if you're ready to take the next step in your fitness journey and you're interested in having me as your coach, I've attached the link in the show notes to apply to work with me. Thank you for listening to Treadmill Talks. If this episode taught you something, lit a fire under your ass, or at least helped you forget how long you've been walking in place, please leave a review or take a screenshot to share on your social media. Don't forget to tag me at Shannon Maves so I can give you some love right back. And thanks again for listening to my Treadmill Talk.